We are live on Twitter, confirmed. Checking YouTube. Live on YouTube, confirmed.
Right there. Bang. Alrighty, welcome in everyone to this episode of the Batflip Podcast. Damian, Matt, and David back with you again this week. We're going to be talking about the same thing we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks, really. We have close races that have been heating up. We got a couple big series that are going to happen. We've had a couple major injury concerns pop up this week. And then we had a real Bull Durham situation happen this week, which was really, really funny. But before we get to all of that, David, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing good. We're going to. I got like 2 concerts coming up. I'm pretty excited about. So going to Riot Fest in Chicago this weekend. That should be pretty fun. But yeah, got some stuff to look forward to. And unfortunately, the old team hadn't taken care of business on the baseball side. So now we're just kind of watching things to see how they go in terms of the playoff picture. And I'm following right along with you guys to see if the Dodgers, the Braves think they're playing right now, see if they make it, and um, where they end up on the playoff race, and then we'll be on playoff baseball and football season for now. So, how you doing, Matt?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been s- same thing except instead of concerts, college football games for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been good. And my team has been, I don't even know what to call them because they've won some games, but every time they lose, it's in the most like frustrating and annoying fashion, as in like loading the bases with nobody out multiple times in games and not scoring, and then losing like 2-1, or being down or being tied at 2 in the ninth inning and giving up like a gazillion runs, as we saw last night after not scoring in the eighth inning with second and third no outs. And yeah, that hadn't been fun, but they're still in the. We'll talk about them here in a little bit because it's one of the major races for the postseason here. But yeah, everything's been good for me. How have you been this week, Damien?
I've been good. What do you think about if a runner's on first and a guy hits a double and then somebody gets thrown out at home with 0 outs?
Is that what just happened?
Yes, just happened to Michael
Oh,
Harris. Just got thrown out at the plate.
well, I mean, you know what? I would have sent him because you know what? There's no chance they were gonna get him in from third. I mean,
Yeah.
so go ahead
But,
and send him at this point.
um, yeah, I mean, overall, it's been a really up and down week for the Dodgers. I mean, they had some good games, they had some bad games. They've held about a 3.5 game lead in the division there. So, um, overall, just not been too bad. Just letting things get ready for this postseason because it's gonna be pretty fun.
Hey,
But
hey, Damien, did you know the Dodgers have a really good two-way player?
yes,
His name's Miguel Rojas.
I do know that. I loved him impersonating the other pitchers while he was doing their windups and stuff on the mound, which was really funny.
Yeah.
But it's not fun them being down 10-1 and watching him have to
In the seventh
pitch.
inning. He's pitching
Yeah,
in the seventh inning. That was
yeah, not
crazy.
fun for that. But um, I guess let's start with the Derek Bender situation that we had happen, just to make a little bit of light of it before we get into the actual races that we've been talking about for 2 or 3 weeks. But um, this week we had a story come out from one of the Twins minor leaguers. It was their 6th-round pick from this year, 2024. Derek Bender was a minor league catcher, and there was just something that he was been released, and comes out that he was tipping the pitches to the opposing team because he wanted the season to end, basically. And they had a good playoff spot. I think they had a 6 game lead, I want to say, just a couple weeks ago, and now they've been eliminated from playoff contention because he was tipping pitches to the opposing teams, which is not great at all. So he's been released, but it's just incredibly funny. We had a real life Bull Durham situation here, but David, what did you think when that first came out, and what's your reaction since?
I have 2 reactions. Right, one is I kind of get it. Baseball's pretty long. Guy might wanted to get out of there. Like, there's that part of me that's like, I understand a little bit, but there's the other part that says, dude, you can't do that to like people who are trying to make a living, like your pitchers. Like you can't do that to them because those guys are getting studied on, based on the effectiveness of their pitches. And that's how they're making a career and a living. And you doing that is directly negatively impacting their career. So, that obviously way outweighs the first part, which is more humorous. But yeah, you can't do this. Especially, this is kind of like the Astros scandal on steroids, basically, right? I mean, this is um, the Astros stuff was them trying to relay pitches, and the players weren't doing it at the cost of their teammates or anything like that, right? It was a team trying to win a championship, and this is like directly sabotaging the team as a whole. And if you've been, I know you guys have been, but like, anybody who's been a part of like a sports team, like the worst thing you can do is like sabotage your teammates or do something that hurts the team, because it's all about the team. And this is a very selfish act that yeah, it's getting punished appropriately. And on top of being ridiculous, it's just ridiculous on top of all that. So um you know Derek Bender, man, what a way to make your name as some from a baseball player nobody knows to now everybody knows he's a kind of a scumbag.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, David. It's just one of those things. It's like somebody is, just. I mean, spend. Somebody obviously is just playing for a check and not really enjoying the game. And I understand not enjoying minor league games. Like you said, the season is long. And I went to a minor league game a couple weeks ago in Birmingham with the Barons, and there was maybe 50 people in the stands. It was on a Wednesday night, so it wasn't like on it wasn't on like the NFL opening night or something. There was like 50 people in the stands. I mean, it was awful, like crowd wise. I mean, I had fun in a baseball game, but it was it's tough, but at the same time, like, I mean, why this guy he must just not believe he's got any shot of ever doing anything in baseball. I mean, because why would you do that? Like every game you play at the A ball level should be trying to move further along and maybe and try to make a name for yourself. You never know when something might click, you might figure it out, you might be able to move up in the minors. And I mean, why are you even playing at this point if you're not caring about it, you're not trying? Like, you should just quit at that point instead of just hurting other people. It's really dumb. And I'm glad they released him. And we'll see if I don't know if he's ever gonna get signed again or what, but um, it's a lack of maturity and just really really dumb. And it's kind of hard to believe someone would do that, but I guess it's the world we live in. So
Yeah, I mean, especially since being a draft pick of just this year, like just a couple months ago, like to go there and already throw away your career at that point. And like you said, I highly doubt any team will ever sign him again, just given that he's already did this before. You know what I mean? Like, it's just such a dumb thing to do. Like David said, I understand the seasons are long, especially coming from, you played your entire collegiate season and then now you're jumping into the middle of these seasons. Like, if you just needed some time off, I mean, like, if you went to the team and just been like, hey, like, I need a break or whatever, like, they can work with you on things like that. But to intentionally cost your team a playoff spot in that because you want to just the season to end so you can go vacation or whatever, like, just incredibly stupid. Um, but glad he's out of the game, and hopefully that this never happens again, because it could be a potential black eye. It's a good thing that it happened in the minor leagues and not in the major leagues, because it could be a bigger deal um,
yeah, it's
up there.
it's a good thing it was just somebody being selfish about not wanting to play and whatever, being
Yeah,
just a little bit frustrated or whatever, and not a gambling situation too.
that too. Yeah,
Because there's a world where that's a gambling situation. Somebody starts giving away pitches and stuff because they want to win. Because they
yeah,
got caught up in a
absolutely,
point shaving. So
absolutely. So all right, let's talk about the races that we've had kind of on the docket for the last couple weeks. Just highlighting the American League East right now. The Yankees have a 3-game lead over the Baltimore Orioles. They start a series next week, 3-game series, which we'll talk about more next week there. The American League Central, Cleveland has a 4-game lead over Kansas City, but the interesting part in the American League is this wild card race where we know Baltimore has the 4.5-game lead up right there, but Kansas City is 2.5 up on the final wild card spot, with Minnesota holding that final spot. But then Detroit and Seattle are both only 2.5 games back, and Detroit has a 3-game series with Kansas City that has started today. So that'll be a really interesting one to see what happens there as well, because that could really shape the way that this whole wild card situation looks. So Matt, what do you think about the way the wild card is looking in the American League?
Yeah, very interesting. I think you look at the Tigers are just. I'm shocked that they're in this position right now that they're in. I mean, they traded away their second best pitcher at the deadline, who would probably be the best pitcher on like 20 teams. The way he's performed this year, um, and their offense had struggled for a lot of the year, and they've just been hot lately, and they've given themselves. I mean, it's still a long shot for them to make it, because they have to they have to beat the Mariners the rest of the season in the standings. I don't think they play games against them, but they gotta win more than the Mariners, and they have to pass the Twins, who are a couple games ahead, or the Royals, who I don't know I don't think the Tigers have any games with the Twins left, do they?
I do not believe they do.
Okay, yeah, because the Tigers are a full 5
see.
games behind the Royals. That's going to be tough.
The
But
Tigers do not. They play Kansas City, Baltimore, Tampa Bay, and the White Sox. So,
right, so but they do have a favorable-ish schedule left. So you got the White Sox in there. There's your 3 wins, and Tampa Bay's not performing all that well, and we'll see what happens with Atlanta, or at the end, or maybe Baltimore. Like, they could end up kind of locking in where they're going to be in the playoffs, and like for example, I mean, you know, but Atlanta might be fighting for the last wild card spot in the National League when they play the Royals. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, I think the Tigers are in a it's a long shot, but they got some form of a chance. And I don't know. I mean, the Royals and Twins, I think, are probably going to make it. The Mariners are scary if they get in because of their pitching staff. But I feel like it's going to be tough to gain what they need to gain to get in. But it'll be interesting.
2.5 games is not a lot, and
Yeah.
this is honestly surprising. We really did not cover this American League wildcard much at all, right? I mean, this has been it snuck up on us, right? The Tigers are playing good baseball right now, right? 7-3 in their last 10. Mariners have started to finally play some really good baseball. Victor Robles, since getting that contract, has been insane. And Julio Rodriguez hit a big home run this last week. Like, the Mariners, if they finally start getting some offense, they might just be able to go on a run here. And we've been saying that all season. And they have talented hitters, right? Mitch Garver's a free agent signing that we praised. He hit a home run this week. Like, I just think the Mariners have a better team than we've been giving them credit for, because they've been playing down and they've been really slumping offensively. And if they start scoring runs, like, look out, man. Like, that's a team that can win the World Series because their pitching staff is so good, like Matt said, right? I mean, that's the single lowest runs scored allowed. It's tied between the Mariners and the Braves in the major leagues, for runs allowed. So those are your 2 best pitching staffs in the majors right there, right? It's like, and it's 2 teams on the fringe of the wild card because of, with the Braves case, it's injuries, but with the Mariners case, it's been incompetence on offense. And I'm focusing on the Mariners here, but the Tigers are not out of it, right? I mean, Riley Green's been fantastic. We've seen really good performances out of, Spencer Torkelson coming back, right? Like, who's the other outfielder for the Tigers? Is it Carpenter?
Kerry
Kerry
Carpenter.
Carpenter's
Yeah,
been good.
Kerry Carpenter, Matt
Matt
Vierling,
Beerling's been good. I mean,
right?
compared to what you would expect from him.
Right.
Yeah.
And Riley Green is the cog that makes that offense go right now. And yeah, I mean, regret's got to be setting in, right? I mean, they are 2.5 back, but I'm telling you, guys, 2.5 games. We are going to be talking about this one again next week. It's going to
Yeah.
change. That's
Oh,
enough that somebody else might be in and somebody might be out next week.
Yeah.
But so
Absolutely. And what I just wanted to throw in there is, it's worth noting too, Minnesota started a 4-game series with Cleveland today.
mhm.
Yep.
So if that's Minnesota's directly facing a team who's been, one of the best teams in baseball all year for 4 games this week, like that could directly impact, what's going on there with Detroit too. Because like I said, who Detroit is playing, they're playing the Royals right now, and then Baltimore, but they can make up ground on the Twins and the Royals at the same time, while Seattle has to go face the Yankees. Um, Heading into this week, so that's going to be a little bit of a tougher matchup there. But
Minnesota is leading Cleveland right now, by the way.
yeah, 3-0 I think is
It's 3-1.
3-1 now. Okay, but yeah, I mean had you come into this year and said that one, you'd have the Guardians leading the division, I don't think too many people would have said like that's crazy like that. But then had you said the three teams fighting for wild card would also be three other AL Central teams, I think we would have said like you
Yeah.
were insane at that point.
Yeah.
Um, it like you said, it really really did sneak up on us, because I don't even think, we really didn't even catch on to this until a month ago. Maybe is when we really started paying attention to this,
Yeah.
where everyone had a shot. So
Yeah.
it's been really interesting.
Yeah, it helps when you have like they get like 6 extra games against the White Sox. I mean,
Yeah,
it helps because
that's true.
the White Sox are now, by the way, they're now over 50 games behind first place. They're 51 games back, and that's not because the Guardians have won like 120 games or something. The Guardians have only won 86 games.
Yeah.
So, and the White Sox also, they're 5 losses, I believe, away from the record, the modern
Mhm.
worst, I guess the expansion era worst record in baseball ever. So, pretty crazy, but that's gonna happen as a lock basically now.
Yeah. Okay, so anything else that we want to hit on the American League in totality before we jump over to the National League?
I mean, just a quick mention, I guess. The Astros are 4.5 up on the Mariners. That's probably going to the Astros, but the Mariners have some remote chance of, if the Astros have a bad week or two and the Mariners get hot, and then the Yankees Orioles we'll talk more about next week, like you said. But I think the Yankees are kind of taking over there.
Yeah.
They're a better team than the Orioles, to be honest. Too. I mean, the Orioles have way more holes. The Yankees have holes, but the Orioles are struggling in that bullpen. So, just a couple other notes there.
Yeah, heck, it actually is worth mentioning. Seattle and Houston start a 3-game series on Monday.
Yeah,
Of
there you
course
go.
they do.
Like,
That'll be good.
how did the schedule makers just know that this was exactly what's going to happen? Who gave them the script?
Yeah.
They cooked. They've
Yeah.
got some. I don't like when a team goes to like one place, plays a 3-game set somewhere, and then goes home and plays the same team they just played.
Yeah.
That aspect I really hate. I do not like that, because a lot of baseball is about familiarity, and so the spreading teams apart makes the regular season very, not random, but it's fair for everybody, because you don't just see the same players over and over again. And then multiple times this year, the Cubs had the Pirates on like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they just got like Paul Skeens and Jared Jones. Like, and it was like,
Mhm.
okay, I mean, if you random that out and it happens, whatever. But it happened like 2 weeks in a row, 3 times this year. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So I don't like that aspect, but this they cooked, because
Yeah.
this is awesome. We got a bunch of races coming down, and series hitting it's all next week basically, except
Yeah.
for Twins Guardians.
Yeah, and he said next week we'll be basically previewing just those series directly, because that's going to be the massive impacts of it. But let's jump over to the National League side now, where in the National League West, the Dodgers have a 3.5-game lead over the Padres, still 5 games over Arizona. Looking at the wild card race, it's 3.5 with San Diego's up, Arizona's up 2 games, and then Atlanta and New York, the Mets, are tied for that last wild card spot. But we did have some stuff with Fransisco Lindor leaving the game early with a back issue this week. He's missed a couple games. He got an MRI. Sounds like he says he should be back before the season, but he's like, it could be 2 days, could be 5 days. It's just whenever it decides to loosen up is when he'll be back. But they did call up a prospect, Luis Angel Acuna, who they got from the Rangers for the Max Scherzer trade. Obviously the brother of Ronald Acuna Jr. But this NL wildcard race is getting really interesting here, Matt.
Yeah, it is. Obviously there's really 4 teams that are still, in that wild card race right now. It's the Braves and Mets are tied for the last wild card spot as of tonight, and then you've got the the Padres a couple games ahead, and the Diamondbacks a couple games ahead. I think the Padres might be 3.5 up in the wild card, and the Diamondbacks are 2. If I'm reading that right. So definitely, definitely nobody in that is a lock. I feel like the Padres are pretty likely to make it. I mean, I'll be surprised if they don't. The Diamondbacks, I wouldn't be shocked if they fell out, but I feel pretty good about them making it. The Braves and Mets is really the interesting thing here. As you mentioned, they have that 3-game series, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that is the swing in the season series as well. I think whoever wins that series wins the season series, which is very interesting, and because that's really a swing of a full game in the standings. And then you've got the uh, the just the strength of schedule for the Braves this week. As we mentioned, they get the Royals, who are tough, and obviously the Mets, but they get I think they get the Reds this week, maybe. Um, they get the Dodgers tonight, of course, who are not bad, but
What, the Braves?
they have an easy
Yeah,
week this week. It's the
it's
Reds
Reds and
and
then Miami.
Miami, so that could help the Braves a bit. But yeah, this race is coming down to the wire, and the Braves are just so injured. I think if they get in, um, they're kind of like the Mariners, where they're offensively challenged right now because of all the Braves cases because of injuries. But if they get in, I mean, you throw a series of Chris Sale and Max Fried, and you got Morton, Schwellenbach, and maybe Lopez coming back. Um, I mean, that's going to be a tough team to beat, especially with their bullpen being as good as it is. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And yeah, this one's going to come down to the wire too.
For sure. Yeah, I will note. You mentioned, right, the Padres could totally fall out. Right, they're 3.5 games up. Well, the Padres are also 3.5 games back of the
Yeah,
Dodgers for the division, which is the thing that happened kind of quickly. We kind of ruled it out, but they've closed that ground up. I think it was like 6 games a few weeks ago. It's now it's now 3.5. Division's not over for the Dodgers, and we've noted that the Dodgers issues, right? We've covered them pretty extensively, but I would say this NL West race is not over yet. Like we mentioned, next week Padres Dodgers 3 game set. I mean, that's 3 of the games right there. All the Padres need to do is stay within striking distance of the Dodgers
yeah,
here this week, and then come into that series motivated. But
yeah.
I know Damien didn't want to hear it, but like that is the key here, right? It's the Padres can pass the Dodgers, and I don't think any of us were expecting that before this season started.
Yeah, and I want to add one more note on the wild card race. The Braves are expecting to get Ozzy Albies back in the next day or two, but he's only going to hit right-handed. And there's also talk that they might get Austin Riley back by the end of the year. And then also on the injury front, we were talking about the Dodgers. It sounds like Glass now is probably not going to pitch again, which is, if you ask me and David, it's not surprising. If you ask Damien, it's very surprising. But the
No.
reports were that he was going to be fine, but I don't trust Glass now to play. So, um, and then that'll be interesting to see what happens there with the injuries. And I mean the Padres too. You mentioned them. They seem to play up to the Dodgers pretty well. I mean,
Hmm.
like they seem to only care about beating the Dodgers. So um, that'll be interesting. Is that in Damien? You probably can answer. Is that in San Diego or is it in LA?
It's in LA.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Well,
wow,
that helps the Dodgers because
for
it's in
sure.
LA, but it is also worth noting, like you said, the Padres have already secured the season series.
okay,
Um,
Wow.
so it doesn't, that point there, it doesn't matter what happens in this series. If they end up tied or something, that somehow the Padres do have the tiebreaker um,
Wow.
from that aspect. So it helps. The Dodgers are going to go to Miami after Atlanta, and then they get Colorado, and then San Diego and Colorado to end the year. So
yeah,
that does help their schedule a little bit. But that direct series, like you said, the Padres get up and they play the Dodgers extremely hard. It does not matter if they are playing really bad right now. Like they get up and that seems to be the jolt they need. And they're playing really well right now, so they're not going to need that extra jolt against it. But like you guys mentioned, the whole Glass now situation. The only reason I was surprised was because of the way it was handled. When like initially he was scratched from the start, saying like if it was the
Hmm.
postseason, he's pitching today, and it's like oh, okay, that's that it's really nothing then. And they're like, well, we're just basically going to put him on the IL just to give him the break and let him, you know, just have the extra
Mhm.
time. Which him already throwing a career high in innings, knowing they're going to need him for the postseason, I was like, yeah, no big deal. And then now it's like it's just progressively got worse, and then now like he sprained his elbow and he's out for the year. It just that part came out of literally nowhere, depending on you know with
Mhm.
what they originally said and how they handled it. It was like this is nothing, and then all of a sudden it was everything, and it's like that's what is surprising to me.
There's something to be said about, or I guess questioned about a Tyler Glass now, right? Now, he just, like Damien said, he just threw his career high in innings, which was 134 innings, 22 starts, his most starts in a single season in his career, right? This is a guy who's been around for a long time and just got a $100+ million extension. My question is, how valuable are 130 really good innings? Do we feel comfortable with that extending of Glass now by the Dodgers? Because when I was thinking about the potential of trading for Tyler Glass now, at least for my team, I was like, well, you're going to get 20 really good starts. And Tyler Glass now has unequivocally delivered 20 really good starts and has, in classic Tyler Glass now fashion, been unable to finish the season. So, what's that worth, right? Is that something you're comfortable with just taking an ace and saying, I hope the 20 games coincide with the postseason, or not? What do you guys think? Because I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's an interesting discussion point because the way pitchers are being handled now. Are very. I think teams are always confident that they can handle a pitcher and say, "Oh, well, that they're just mismanaging that pitcher. Or we can keep them healthy. We can manage their innings. We can limit them and whatever." But that's way harder to do in practice than it is by just, and not to mention the fact that when you start limiting a pitcher and putting them on the IL to take a start off, that kind of thing. Sometimes that can, they end up being inconsistent in how much they're throwing, and it just that can bother them too. I mean, I don't think it's a perfect science, and you got a guy like Glass now who, like you mentioned, I mean, his injury issues aren't just like. I mean, it's not even like a Chris Sale thing where he's had like 4 years in a row. It's like he's never done it. Like Chris Sale's thrown a lot of innings in a season before, and that was a good gamble this year that he was going to be able to do it again. But like Tyler Glasnow has literally never done it. So
Hmm.
it's just one of those things that it's like it's just hard to tell too because I mean you got like I think when Zach Wheeler was with the Mets, I believe Zach Wheeler had like constant injuries his entire time with the Mets until maybe the last year he was there, and you know he's been the most durable pitcher. Like with the Mets, he had an 86 inning season, and I guess he 100. He had a pretty good. He just had the one really big, you know. But still, like he's a guy that you took a bet that he was going to be healthy, and he has been. And it's tough. I mean, sometimes you got to bet on it. I think the Dodgers' thoughts too were that they had like 7 or 8 options, and one of them was going to click and not get injured, and they all have gotten injured. And the guys who have come back from injury, like Walker Bueller, have been bad. So it's kind of caused a mess in their
Hmm.
pitching staff. I mean, really the only guy that they've hit on so far has been Yamamoto, and he's been injured a bit this year too. And there weren't any injury questions about his previous workload, but he had just the build questions about him and wondering how that would translate. So it's definitely been interesting to see with Glass now, and it's a good for one thing it's a good kind of a case study in these pitchers and signing them to these extensions and stuff, and it's just difficult to it's just so difficult to say when you sign somebody because there's a world where Glass now never gets hurt again, or it's just you never know. So I don't blame the Dodgers, especially since they have so much money. But for my team, like we were talking before the show about Max Fried next year. Like that's another one he's thrown a lot more innings than Glass now. But I mean, this is like 3 years in a row that he's been a little bit banged up at times, and he's looking for a $200 million contract. And it's like, do you give him that? And I think the answer for me, at least before we were talking, was probably not. I don't think I'd give
Yeah.
him
Hmm.
that. I mean, Because I mean, for one thing, pitchers are so fickle, anyways. You don't even know if they're gonna stay good, and then not to mention the injury risk you have with them on the long-term deal. So I'll be, it'll be interesting to see what happens. You also get the Garrett Cole occasionally too, that just is, or Verlander when he signed his deal, several years ago. It's just like ends up being good forever. So you just never know.
Yeah, I mean, I think initially when the trade happened, it was like, hey, if they get 150 innings plus postseason this year, they're like thrilled, right? Because this was, I mean, he did have that 120 inning, 120 innings last year, but um, that was him being slow played a little bit at the beginning of the year, so he was basically healthy the back end of that. Um, so they got 134. You think if you made two more starts, there would be your 150-ish innings or whatever from there. So I mean, I think it's just kind of some things that happened. I mean, you mentioned the Dodgers pitching injuries and woes have been incredible this year as well. Like that's something that even Andrew Friedman has already addressed and saying that like this offseason we have to really look at the way we handle things and the way we go about dealing with pitchers because I mean they probably could fill out a whole pitching staff, not just a rotation, a whole pitching staff with just people that are on the IL right now, like in a major league one that could actually compete. Like they'd be better than the White Sox, which is not hard to do. But um, like I don't know. It's just I think it's easy to say that it was going to happen to Glass now, and that's in hindsight you could say that. I'm just more puzzled by the way that it happened from the moment it happened now to like where we ended up
Mhm.
at Friday, um, because within that time it didn't seem like it
Yeah.
was a big injury, and now it's like oh yeah his season's over, which just that's what really threw me for the loop and made it from there. Um, but let's talk. Like I want to mention as we're talking about the injury scenarios, I want to just go to what the Lindor thing does mean for the Mets and how long that it's going to do, and then also hit on Acuna being called up and how he can help impact the Mets there. But David, do you take like, how does this Lindor back issue affect how you look at the Mets and their potential little run here for that? And this is a little caveat at all. Does the Lindor issue, him missing a week or two or whatever he misses here, affect his MVP status?
Yes, it really does because Lindor needed to put up enough numbers and pull enough of a war gap on Otani in order to discount the stuff we talked about last week, right? Like he had to stay healthy, he had to be durable, and he had to lead the Mets into the playoffs. And now, if the Mets make the playoffs, which look, I've been down on the Mets the entirety of the season, so the fact they're still in this is shocking. I would pick against them against the Braves. Like I've been picking against them all year. They've been proving me wrong all year. So fine, but Lindor had to lead them in order to get that MVP nod. He has to have some stuff that Otani doesn't have, and this durability question right at the end of the season, like that's of course the narrative the media is going to be very quick to run with, that well Lindor was hurt late, Otani led his team to the playoffs. Lindor either didn't or was didn't led his team to a point where they missed the playoffs. So that aspect, I think it's all Otani, especially as soon as he gets to 50-50. It throws a lock on it. I think it really shuts down the discussion because if Lindor doesn't really play in September, it doesn't matter. But as for Acuna, being that replacement, and is that enough? Acuna had a 69 WRC plus in AAA. AAA's got the ball bouncing a ton. I think we saw that Double A's very suppressed right now. AAA is insane again. So he had 40 stolen bases. Did Luis Angel Acuna? He was hitting 258, and he had like 69 WRC plus. So like he was like 30%, 31% worse than league average in
Yeah.
AAA, which is not good. And that's coming off of him being a 78 or 76 WRC plus player in AA when he got traded over to the Mets. He has not been terribly good, but he's 22, right? He's got a lot of growing to do. Can he do that growing at the major league level? I don't know. Can he do that growing in a playoff race? I mean, he's got the genes for it, right? He's related to Ronald. Ronald's a guy, a big game type of player, but that's not something you want to rely on, right? And
this situation. I mean, like I said, the Mets have been playing up a hill all season long. The rotation has been put together by duct tape and toothpicks. Like, this is not a team I am predicting to make the playoffs, but they are in position to make the playoffs, which is absurd. And they might just do it in spite of losing Lindor anyway. Like, I don't know. That's where I'm at. It's like, I don't know. They've been proving me wrong all season.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, the biggest thing going for the Mets is how bad their competition is right now and struggling offensively, to where you just never know on a night to night basis how the Braves are gonna play, and you've got a series with them left. I mean, the Braves are very likely to not win that series. I mean, just because of the way that they're swinging the bats right now, and the Mets can still score runs. I mean, the Braves aren't beating bad pitchers, and there's no chance they're beating There's no chance they're getting beating good pitchers. But I mean, at the same time, like the Mets can outscore them probably. I mean, they only have to score like 2 runs in a game, even if the Braves are, even if they got like I don't know Quintana pitching or something. But the the Lindor situation that's tough for him. Having him out is a big deal. Acuna, I think you hit that pretty well. The reports with Luis Angel Acuna are that he doesn't have the same kind of like power and physical attributes as Ronald. He's got some of the speed and athleticism, like running, and he's a good defender. But he's a lot smaller. Just doesn't have the game power and has a really bad approach at the plate. You can see it in his numbers at AAA. I mean, just doesn't have much power, and he's only walking 5% of the time at AAA. Swings at a lot of pitches out of the zone, and he'll get eaten alive at the big league level doing that. And then, but that I don't know what their other options are, because you've got Jeff McNeil's out right now, and they've been playing Jose Iglesias at second a lot because of that. And Jose Iglesias probably would have been the shortstop fill-in for Lindor, but now you have another middle infield spot open, so you might put Iglesias there, but you've got one open, so you got to find somebody. And I guess giving Acuna a shot is they felt like was the right move, but it's gonna be interesting. I don't know. I don't know where they go from. If they don't have Lindor, I don't know what they're going to do offensively. They're going to have to really just have some good fortune for a couple guys unexpectedly to have good couple weeks here at the end of the season to win to win this race.
Yeah, I mean it's Lindor being out. I think it is a direct hit on the Mets' chances. I mean, and if he's out for that Braves series, I think that's probably the blow. I think that
Big
goes
deal.
the Braves' way. Yeah, like him saying like, "Oh, yeah, I hope to be back," and whenever it loosens up, like at this point, I feel like you probably just have to see if he's going to be back for the Brave series, because that's probably when his return is going to have to be. Um, like give him another week and go from there. Like that's a big one. That is really really big, especially with their chances right here. And we know the pitching staff the Mets have had their own injuries with as well. So you lose an MVP caliber player this year. Um, that could be massively swing things in the wrong direction for you. But um, speaking of the Mets and one of their former pitchers, we wanted to also mention that Jacob DeGrom returned to the mound. Was Friday night, I think, is what we said.
Yes, yeah, Friday
Yep.
night.
He pitched 3 2/3 scoreless innings. He looked actually really good. The stuff was there. He was just on a pitch count. Um, but yeah, Jacob DeGrom coming back. He's one of the best pitchers. He's not going to obviously be in the playoffs this year with the Rangers, but getting him back onto the mound and seeing if he's going to be healthy, going to next year, that's pretty exciting, because, like Evan said, when he's on, he's incredible to watch.
Yep.
Yeah, he looked great. I mean, his slider looked really good. He was throwing, upper 90s, close to 100. I don't know if he touched 100, but he was in the 99 range, which is definitely not really a decrease in velocity for him. Um, 4 strikeouts, no walks. He's a lot of times you worry about command with guys coming off of Tommy John coming back, and obviously the no walks was nice to see. And we'll see if maybe they can bump his workload up a little bit more, and at the end of the season, kind of get his feet back wet and go into next year and have a healthy Jacob DeGrom start the season. That would be fantastic to see. I'd love to see him have the Chris Sale 2024 season next year, because I think
Yeah.
he's still got it in him. And sometimes having that time off from your Tommy John can help heal up other things, because he's had a lot of other things that he's dealt with. He's had lat issues. I think he's had oblique issues. I think he may have had some form of a shoulder issue. Was one of his things. It hasn't always been elbow stuff. So hopefully those other things are kind of healed up now with the rest he's gotten from the Tommy John surgery. And hopefully he can come back and be really good again.
Yeah, no, baseball is better when Jacob
Yeah.
deGrom is pitching well, right? And it sucks that he signed this big mega deal with the Rangers and was having he had one of his best starts of his career, and that's a guy who's had back-to-back Cy Youngs with ERAs in the ones, and he was having one of his best starts of his entire career and got shut down. Like I want nothing more than to have yet one more Jacob deGrom, just electric elite season. Um, does it happen in Texas? I don't know, right? What do the Rangers do this offseason? Are they still strapped for cash? Do they try to move some money around? The Rangers are going to be a really interesting team because, coming off a World Series, that's not going to be acceptable. They're going to need to make some changes somewhere. I don't necessarily think it's trade deGrom, but like something is going to have to happen in that organization, right? And they made a lot of moves for injured pitching. The injured pitching didn't come back as quickly as they wanted it to, nor as effectively as they wanted it to. And, that's a team that missed the playoffs, right? So I'm looking forward to another great Jacob deGrom season next year. Fingers crossed that it stays all year and he actually competes for that Cy Young, but like a Chris Sale resurgence. But it's tough to pencil in at this point. He's 37 now, so it's going to be tough.
Yeah. Hopefully it happens though. Alrighty, so I think that's pretty much all we had on the ticket for tonight. But anything else you guys want to hit on or wrap up on before we head out?
Yeah, I think the last thing I was going to mention, we've talked a lot about the watch for the Triple Crown pitching wise, and I believe Chris Sale still has the lead there. I think he's got 4 more strikeouts than Dylan Cease, so that's pretty close. ERA is still pretty good bit better, and also the wins. He's got 4 more wins he's got 2 more wins than anybody else right now, so he should be good to go on that. And then in the American League, Tariq Skubal is now tied for the lead in wins with Seth Lugo, division rival, and he does still lead in strikeouts, and I believe he leads in ERA still as well. So Tariq Skubal still leading, although tied in wins, and then Chris Sale leading in all 3, but strikeouts is really close with him. So, and I saw one other stat this week on Chris Sale that he has gone, I believe it's 17 starts in a row without giving up more than 2 earned runs. I believe that was the number. And it was like the 3rd time that's ever happened. So, which is pretty wild. I think Maddox might have been one of them. And then there was some pitcher in like 1920 that did it. And it's unbelievable what he's done this year. But he's like a minus 5,000 favorite to win the Cy Young now, which will be his first. But I wanted to point out those races there, and definitely an interesting thing to watch out for. And I wonder, and I was listening to a podcast earlier with Chris Sale about how close is he in that MVP discussion? Because I think he's 3rd. So I don't think I'd put him above.
Yeah, maybe.
I'd put him 3rd.
He's probably
He's behind Ellie, I
You
think for
so?
sure. Yeah, Ellie's got 64 stolen bases. He's behind Ellie because MVP as a pitcher, you play 30 games as a pitcher. You have to be really insane, and to get. Yeah, I would say there's merit to Chris Sale getting a top 5 finish in MVP.
Yeah, I was
voting. There's some merit there, and that's a testament to how good Chris Sale has been. That he's that it's not ridiculous to say he could finish top 5 in MVP.
Yeah, you can argue with him and Ellie, 3 and 4. I think that Chris Sale actually has a slight advantage in WAR there, which is kind of crazy. But the one thing I will say is, where would the Braves be without Chris Sale? Braves are under 500 in games that he doesn't start, and they're 21-7 in games he does start. That's pretty crazy. Like they would literally be like 10 games out of the playoffs without Chris Sale. So I just thought that was something worth bringing up. I was listening to a podcast earlier about it, but kind of an interesting look. But we haven't seen a pitcher win MVP in like 15 years ish. Verlander was in 11, right?
Yeah,
Or
13 years.
Kershaw.
Kershaw.
and
was in
Verlander.
4.
I thought Kershaw was in like 11 or 12. It was around that time. And Kershaw won an MVP, and Verlander won an MVP, and they were in similar. They were in that same general time frame. But let us know, Damien. He's looking it up.
He's looking it up.
Yeah, it was 14.
14.
Yep.
Okay.
It was when we had that kind of almost dead ball era when pitchers were just insane there for a little bit, and Kershaw was still like head and tails above everybody else too.
Yeah,
it was wild.
He was crazy. Was that a year he had like the 1.7 ERA or something?
Yeah, he had the year before he had a 183, and then that year he had a 177.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
My closing thought is that it is so important to remember that development for young players is not linear. Victor Robles is killing it in Seattle. He is a 444 batting average over his last 30 days. He's got 12 stolen bases. He's finally understanding how to hit. Corbin Carroll started this season horrifically. Just had a miserable first half. He's been one of the best players in baseball over the second half, the last 30 days. He's got a 150 WRC plus. Pete Crow Armstrong could not hit the broadside of a barn door last season in September. This September, he's sitting on like a 150 WRC plus. Jackson Churio started the season under 100 WRC plus. He's got like a 150 WRC plus here in September, 160 actually from Jackson Churio. Development's not linear. Like, you're going to see young players struggle at the beginning of their career. They might even struggle for years. Sometimes it's going to click, and some of these young guys are so good these days. Like, we're going to see stars like blossom out of top prospects like Churio and Pete Crow Armstrong, but I think we're also going to see stars blossom like a guy like Lawrence Butler, right, who has 8 home runs in his last 50 games. I think on the season he's going to be like a 4-WAR player. Is Lawrence Butler for Oakland? Prospect? No. Did you ever hear of him before this year? I hadn't. Like, and that might be a product of him playing in Oakland. He's 24 years old and he's cranking 30 home runs in a major league season. Like, that's awesome. Yeah, and Brent Rooker's another one, right? Yeah. He hit another one tonight. Jerickson Profar. It's so important to remember that even as a lot of baseball players kind of you understand who they are, there's always adjustments being made, right, in this league, from pitchers to hitters to pitchers. Like, guys are having to figure it out, make adjustments, and get better. And the guys that you see making adjustments and getting better are the guys who are going to be great players. And it never stops, and they're never trying to fail, right? But like a guy like Lawrence Butler, he's going to be a 3, maybe 4-WAR player this year, right? He strikes out a decent amount. Like, he's kind of a Adolis Garcia type. He's going to have some years where he fails. Is Lawrence Butler? But does that mean he's a bad player at any point? Like, no. Like, this guy's 24 years old. He's got a lot of learning still to do, a lot of developing still to do, and it's exciting to see where he can go. And I think Major League Baseball's in really good hands, because we spent a lot of time today talking about some guys that are older, like Jacob deGrom, and I feel very confident that we're in really good hands going forward.
Oh yeah, we are.
Yeah, Lawrence Butler's also on a 22-game hitting streak, by the way.
Wow.
That's awesome. He's cool. It's cool to see a guy like Lawrence Butler.
That's before tonight. I don't know if he's
facing Imanaga.
I don't think he's in the lineup.
He might not be. Is he lefty, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. He might be.
They might have.
He's been platooning a little bit this year.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, he's not in the lineup tonight.
So yeah, he's a 22-game hitting streak coming into tonight at least. And then real quick history watch. Otani's at 47, 48. So So
Yeah.
he should have
Yep.
had 49 already, but just 3 more homers and 2 more stolen bases for 50-50. So, but I think that's going to wrap up this episode. Next week, we'll basically preview all of those big series that we mentioned: New York, Baltimore, was it LA, San Diego, Atlanta, Mets, and Houston, Seattle, and then we'll do some more stuff there. But previewing those series, since those are going to be the big series, and we'll have basically 1 week of the season left as of recording next week. So it's going to be really, really, it's crunch time here. So teams are going to have to make moves. But that'll wrap up this episode of the Batflip Podcast. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys back next week.